Hi, my name is L'Oreal Torres. I'm the Chief People Officer at Vested. In honor of Black History Month, I have the pleasure to speak with Laureen Williamson and Pamela Thomas, the co-founders and co-curators of the Museum of UnCut Funk. They're here today to share about their exhibit, For the Love of Money, Black Icons on U.S. Currency. The exhibit is particularly timely given the Biden administration has said they will resume the efforts to put Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. Laureen and Pamela, thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Hi, thank you so much for having us.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourselves?
Well, I'll go first. My name is Pamela, and I'm co-founder and co-creator of the Museum of UnCut Funk. I have a background in African American history and education. I've been a preschool teacher for 13 years, and I've had the ability or luxury to teach on a college level at Bloomfield College for about 3.5 semesters, 4 semesters actually. I developed a course called Is That Entertainment? A Critical Examination of 1970s Blaxploitation Film, Comics, and Music. I am an avid fan an avid fan of African American history. I've been fortunate enough to be a collector for over 25 years. And our collection is based on 1970s Black culture, always looking to find new items to add. We have also collected items that are from, I would say, the 60s, the 40s, 50s, and 60s. So we have an array of memorabilia in our collection, but that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Hi, I'm Laureen. My funk name is Reenie the Funk Baby or Red Funk Baby. It's important to have a funk name when you have a museum called the Museum of UnCut Funk. I am a lover of Black history, inspired by my mom, who was a teacher and taught me everything she knew about Black history and really encouraged me to learn as much as I could about our history. I am a child of the 70s. I mean, I'm just stuck in the 70s because I think it's like the best decade ever. I am a passionate collector, as Pamela is, of 1970s Black culture artifacts. And we do have items that are from other decades, but the 70s is really our sweet spot. And a friend of the museum named John Jennings calls us radical archivists of 1970s Black material culture. And we're certainly trying to live up to the radical archivist part of that title. I am a self-taught curator. I've spent the past few years curating different aspects of our collection into traveling exhibitions that have toured to museums and cultural institutions across the country. We have had 322,459 people see our exhibitions to date. And yes, I am counting every single person that sees one of our exhibitions. And those are pre-COVID numbers. They'd be much higher if we weren't in the middle of a global pandemic that essentially has shut down every museum across the globe. So, post pandemic, we're really hoping to resume touring our exhibitions and getting back to driving those numbers up. But our exhibitions have been very successful. We have artifacts that people have really never seen before, and we talk about aspects of Black history in our exhibitions that people haven't really learned before. So they're highly engaged when they see our exhibitions. And we're very excited about how well they've been received and how well they've been covered. And we're very proud of the fact that 2 of our exhibitions have appeared on front pages within the New York Times. So we're very pumped about that. I am a marketer by training and very excited to be working on a culturally relevant, nostalgically driven brand, a very unique brand and positioning that we've been devoting our life to. And finally, I am a Wharton grad. So I am spending every waking moment of my life trying to become a successful entrepreneur and trying to use my education for the good.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. What you do is very unique. So what inspired the 2 of you to start the Museum of UnCut Funk? And what makes it so different from other museums?
Well, we are former gallery owners, and we were unfortunately affected by 9/11 and had to close our gallery because we were in a town where the predominant community worked in the Wall Street area, so a lot of families were affected. And while we were gallery owners, we still collected 1970s Black culture. We also had some aspects of that collection in the gallery that we offered to our customers. And once we closed the gallery, you know, we took a step back, tried to think about what we were going to do next. We also tried to keep the gallery going from a brick and mortar space into an online, tried to keep communication open with customers, but that didn't pan out so well. So we decided, or I should say, and maybe Lorene will beg to differ, I decided to come up with this idea that we should open up a museum. I mean, after all, we had a gallery space. So how hard could it be to open up a museum? We have a collection. No one has a collection like this. Let's do it. And she said no. So, you know, and I understand that, you know, having our first venture as being gallery owners, it was a task within itself, especially neither one of us are coming from an art background. And so, you know, after some going back and forth, she kind of signed on to the fact of, okay, you know, we don't have to have a brick and mortar, but we can certainly start online. And that's how the Museum of UnCut Funk came to be. We took our collection, started it online. As I may have mentioned before, I really believe I'm the one that came up with the name Museum of UnCut Funk, but somehow, you know, maybe Lorene has a different version to that. But in essence, we basically just took everything we had and decided to put it all online. And from the onset, because we were so different and unique, being a virtual museum, at that particular time, we didn't, from the little that we knew of museums being online, there wasn't a lot of museums online, especially with the type of collection that we had. So that's kind of what set us apart. And then once things started, the ball started moving and we started doing actual exhibitions, we definitely were not like anyone else, you know, being a virtual space and then having our collection go to physical spaces. So that's what really set us apart.
Yeah, you know, the owning a physical gallery was taxing. And I think, you know, a lot more physically draining than I had anticipated. So no, I was not looking forward to owning another physical space at that time. And you know, it just really kind of hit this whole, you know, share your collection online thing that was happening on the internet. So yeah, it's like, you know, we can do this virtually. It's something that we can control. You know, again, we had been through the whole situation with 9/11. So when you're an entrepreneur and you want to open a business, you think about all of the various scenarios, you know, what could go wrong, and you have, you know, plan A, B, C, D, E. Well, you know, a terrorist attack was like plan Z. We just never saw that coming, you know, and it's one of those things that creates, you know, it is a tragic thing. And, you know, there's nothing that can, I think, really, there's nothing that can really make a situation like that a good one in terms of loss of life and just the, you know, the heartache in the town that we were based in. But, you know, it's also financially devastating as well, right? And again, it's just not something that we planned for. So no, I didn't want to, you know, kind of set ourselves up for the potential of that again. I feel for everybody who's opened a new business in the midst of this pandemic, because we've been through this before. This, you know, just unbelievable, you know, scenario that gets thrown at you that you just never anticipated. But, you know, I think at that point in time, you know, with everything we've been through, online was the best place for us to be. And you know, it really has given us something unique because we didn't start, you know, back in the 70s or 80s or 90s as a physical space. We started as a digital museum. So, you know, we have, you know, some cutting edge aspects to what we do. We do really see ourselves as being, you know, totally different than everybody else. And I think as we have come around, you know, some 20 years later to all roads leading to us building a physical Museum of UnCut Funk, now that we really do have, I think a very unique collection that other museums don't have. And we have a lot of, experience under our belt, and we've done a lot of touring of our exhibitions. It's going to serve us well that we did that we went digital to physical, and that, we come forward with, something that's really unique and different and built on technology, and really with an attitude that, hey, you know what, everything is fair game. There's nothing that we can't do. And we're really looking to create something, purposely that's unique and different, and driven by technology. One of the people we're working with is trying to get us to think about being future forward. So that's really kind of our thinking. We're kind of playing around in the blockchain now. We've got some, digital EFTs. We're really, kind of coming into our own as this unique digital entity, and trying to think about how to translate that into a physical space. But 20 years ago, no, I was not. I was just not hearing it. I was tired and needed a break.
That makes sense. And I think it's quite interesting because you guys have done the reverse story of most museums, right? You started on a digital platform, made it really accessible for people, and are now going into a physical space where people can experience it in a different way.
Yeah.
So talking about exhibits, one of the exhibits that you had was For the Love of Money, Black Icons on US Currency. And can you tell me a little bit about how you went about collecting movie posters and memorabilia from the 70s to starting a coin collection?
Well, because we love the 70s, to be honest with you, I think I don't really actually remember how we started collecting movie posters. It started actually from animation. So Lorene had this very unique collection of Looney Tune and Warner Brothers animation. And with me having a background in African-American history, I said to her, where were the Black cartoons? And from that point, we were dealing with an art gallery in a small town that we lived near. And we went to them to see if they could source any of the Black cartoons for us, the original production cells, drawings, storyboards, and what have you. And they went on a mission, and lo and behold, I believe the first one that we obtained was a Fat Albert cell. And from there, the collecting actually started. And I remembered that I had a Spike Lee movie poster. And a friend of mine said to me, why are you collecting this? Or why do you have this movie poster? It's so juvenile. And I'm saying to myself, but I love Spike Lee. I had it in a big frame. It was hanging on my wall. It looked great. I got rid of it. And from that point, when Lorene and I started collecting animation, that's what made me wanted to go back into getting movie posters. And one thing led to another. We went to this memorabilia show and looking for movie posters, potentially animation. And we passed this table, and this dealer had coins on the table. And so I happened to look at some of the coins because my grandparents were coin collectors. My mom had a little collection of Morgans. And so I stopped and looked, and there was this coin of Booker T. Washington, which I had never seen before. And I was so blown away. I called Lorene over for her to see it. And I looked again, there was another coin with George Washington Carver and Booker T. Washington on it. And we were both like floored because we didn't know they exist. Every coin that my grandparents had, I remember my grandmother had a like 1/10 of an ounce gold $10 coin, and Morgan's and JFK $50. So that's what I grew up with. And so to see this coin, it immediately took me to them of, did you guys know about this? So that's how we actually got started collecting coins, and it just took off from there.
Yeah, that question of where are the Black cartoons? I mean, that kind of hurt me because I kind of considered myself a lover of Black history, and it just didn't occur to me, right, that I could go and ask these folks at this gallery to actually source things for me. So I took that as a personal challenge. And, that's how, today we have over 800 pieces of animation in our collection. It just started with a quest on, where are the Black cartoons? And it leads you to looking for things and trying to find things. And with the advent of the internet, it became a lot easier to source, animation and to buy it, to do auctions online and different things like that. So, but yeah, that was a challenge. Like I took that personally, like, okay, I need to answer that question. But as Pamela said, when you start collecting one thing and you start doing the research, you start looking for things that have Black images on it, it leads to other things. And that's how we ended up with the kind of breadth of things that we have. And that's really what, again, kind of makes us unique and makes our exhibitions unique, because we've got items that people just have never seen before, things that they hadn't really considered that would be, available and be collectible. And I think, when you have the artifacts, you can tell the stories from a culturally relevant perspective. So we're really able to shed light on, aspects of Black history that we learned as we went along and that other people don't know. And that's really the thing that I think makes For the Love of Money such a cool exhibition, because people just don't, Harriet Tubman on the 20 is awesome. Like we cannot wait to get our Tubmans, but there have been Black people on, official US currency since the 1940s, starting with, the 2 coins that Pamela referenced. And, over the decades, they have just added more and more commemorative currency in the form of coins and medals and medallions that are available for collectors to collect. And, really is an interesting collection because it spans the entire Black history timeline from 1619 to today. So it really serves as a testament to the fact that Black history is American history. When you look at, the people and the events and the institutions that are represented on these commemorative objects.
It's so awesome. And I think I've had the pleasure of looking, spending a lot of time on the virtual museum. And one of the things I wonder is, how do we get to a place where these coins come into existence? How do they come into circulation? That's something I've never learned. And I would love for you guys to educate us a little bit on how do these coins even, get circulated and created?
Well, a lot of commemorative currency is not circulated. I think at this point, the only ones that actually circulate are the commemorative quarters. But, the way that these come into existence is through legislation, legislation that authorizes the US Mint to produce them. So if you have, a congressperson or a senator who wants to honor and commemorate a person or an event or an institution, they draft legislation, they sponsor it, they get other co-sponsors, and then they have to get, 2/3 of their representative body to pass that legislation. So 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate, pass it just like you would any other form of legislation, and it goes to the sitting president to be signed into law. That is for all aspects of commemorative currency. But if you are looking at specifically like the commemorative bronze medals, for example, those represent people who have been honored with a congressional gold medal. So, for people that, Congress wants to bestow that honor on, which is one of the highest honors that civilians can receive in this country, the Mint creates a custom medal that is representative of that person, event, or institution. Every congressional gold medal is different and specific to the awardee, and then the legislation authorizes them to create replicas in bronze, and those are the ones that are made available to purchase through the Mint.
That's actually very interesting. And I'm sure most people don't even know that these things happen in order to get the coins created and put into existence. So as you're collecting all of these coins, has there been any particular coin or fact that you've learned through your collection and through the process of just digging in for a little more research that you have found particularly interesting or inspiring that you'd love to share with us?
Well, for me, it's the Tuskegee Airmen bronze medal. I've always been fascinated about them, but I didn't know enough about them to really understand the breadth of their contributions to American history. And every time I look at that coin, you know, I think about the people in my family who are veterans who are no longer with me. But it's just something about that coin that I find to be absolutely beautiful. And the story of the Tuskegee Airmen and how they went, you know, overseas and fought this battle, and, you know, having to come home and be treated like second class citizens. You know, the other two items that are not coins are the bonds that I had no idea that Marian Anderson was on a Series I bond, or Series 1 bond, if I'm not mistaken. And Martin Luther King is on $100 Series I bond. And I had no clue. So I, you know, was very fascinated about that because I collected bonds, Series E bonds, when I was younger. It was like, okay, how come no one told me about this? You know, every time I go into the bank, I'm having these conversations, but yet no one said anything, and maybe I was supposed to know. So those are the three items from our collection that are very special to me.
Yeah, I think just, you know, kind of stepping back for a second, I think the thing that's just really important about these objects is the fact that, you know, they are tangible representations of Black contribution and achievement and value, backed by, you know, law, you know, which enshrines that contribution, achievement, and value into law. They are permanent records of, you know, what Black people have contributed to this country. And I think in a time when, you know, Black history is, you know, kind of being whitewashed and erased, it's really important that there is this, you know, historical record of what, you know, Black Americans have done, you know, what types of, you know, historical events have occurred to, you know, help continue to move the country towards its, you know, promise of being a more perfect union. What types of institutions have been developed to kind of drive and support Black contribution and achievement. So that's kind of the overall thing that I really learned, you know, beyond the fact that they're just beautiful objects. They are, you know, beautiful, dignified, you know, sculptural portraits of, you know, amazing Black people. And, you know, again, kind of, you know, events and institutions that are a part of Black history and American history, but it is really the permanent record that's there of that contribution that's important. In terms of a couple of things that I worked on that I just really had no idea. One is what was a congressional gold medal that became a replica bronze medal for the Civil Air Patrol. And this was a civilian group of volunteers that helped train civilian pilots in support of the American effort in World War II. And as a part of that group of volunteers was a Black woman named Willa Brown, who was the first Black person to be an officer in the Civil Air Patrol. She rose to the level of lieutenant. And she was also, and I'm actually going to read this so I don't mess up the history on this. She was she was the first Black woman to earn a private pilot's license and to hold a commercial pilot's license in the United States. She was also the first woman to hold both a pilot's and mechanic's license. And ultimately, her and her husband opened up the first Black owned and operated flight school, which ultimately ended up training future Tuskegee Airmen. So, you know, that's kind of a full circle conversation, you know, connected to the airmen. But it's interesting because that medal does not have an image of a Black person on it. And it was just because I was being kind of nerdy and, you know, doing research that I happened to, you know, come across this. And it never occurred to me that would have been representative of, you know, a Black woman who was so, you know, highly regarded as a part of the Civil Air Patrol. The second one is the OSS bronze medal, and that is Office of Strategic Services, which is the precursor to the CIA. And again, that doesn't have, you know, any people on it, but it honors Ralph Bunche, who was the first Black person to work for the OSS. He was also the first Black person to receive a Nobel Peace Prize He was a diplomat, and he was the first Black man to be awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which, along with the Congressional Gold Medal, is one of the other highest honors that civilians can be awarded by the government. And he, is best known for a lot of the diplomatic work that he did in Israel. So again, you look at those two objects and think that they have nothing to do with Black history, but, doing, research for, kind of curation projects, we're able to kind of find those two exemplary Black Americans have been honored in that way. And I would say, there is another set of medals that are part of the collection. It's not so much what, I learned about them as it is how they've moved me, because they represent history in the making that I was able to bear witness to. And those are the presidential medals awarded to Barack Obama, the first Black president of the United States. And, that is something that, in addition to watching Kamala Harris, my soror, get elected as the first Black vice president of the United States, things that you don't expect to happen in your lifetime. And as a lover of Black history, who's always kind of looking backward and saying, gee, I wish I had been there when that happened. It was just amazing to bear witness to that and say, I was there, so those have personal, kind of personal importance to me.
Great. Yes, two definitely monumental moments, I think. And hopefully in this lifetime, we'll get to see a third.
Yes, as Kamala says, she may be the first, but she won't be the last, so.
Yeah. And I think thinking about what this administration is doing now and kind of going back to what we all hope will be putting Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. What do you think that signals about progress in the United States and in creating maybe a more inclusive financial environment? And why is it so monumental?
Well, it's monumental for me in the sense of there have been so many slaveholders on US currency that, it's about time a former slave, now freed Black woman is on US currency. But as far as progress is concerned, I don't know if that is progress given the totality of what's going on in this country, let alone globally. Is it a start towards progress? That's debatable. But representation matters. And as we move forward looking to do financial literacy and talking about currency and having these objects and then to have a $20 bill with a woman of color on it, yes, that's progress in the sense of you can get more, especially young people, to hear what you're saying and to understand the importance of financial literacy, savings, credit, so on and so forth. So from that perspective, for me, I think that is what the progress is, having her placed on a $20 bill, in addition to the others who are hopefully will come to go on a $5 and $10 bill.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. There's a lot of debate as to, there are some people who say, what this is, just, kind of a token gesture and it doesn't mean anything. And it doesn't let the United States off the hook for the things that need to be done to move, racial justice and social justice and equality forward. I think, my point of view is that I think it is important, because representation does matter, for little, Black girls and little Black boys to see, Black people on currency. Like I said, it's great to be on commemorative currency. It's better to be on circulating currency and even better to be on paper currency, right? It's like, as for the love of money, the OJ say, for a little piece of paper, it carries a lot of weight. And in a capitalist society, it really does. It is a reflection of the values of the society, who we place on our money. And I think, this Harriet Tubman situation has kind of come full circle, right? She was, an enslaved Black person. Her labor was stolen to create the capitalist system that we live under and to generate the wealth of this country. Not that she benefited from it, but she definitely, and all of the enslaved ancestors were essential in driving capitalism and creating that wealth. And it's just interesting, that she is being recognized for escaping that oppressive system and freeing as many enslaved Africans from that system as she could, only centuries later to be honored on the instrument of that system, right? And to replace a slave holder, a slave owner. So it's again kind of a full circle thing, but then to have kind of gone through the last 4 years of she was going to be on the bill, and then she was not going to be on the bill because of a administration that just was not as racially progressive as they should have been. Let me just put it that way. To now to be back on the bill because Black folks walked over broken glass to vote in a new administration. So there's a lot of interest and intrigue about kind of how Harriet will ultimately be placed on the bill. And I think it is not something that's going to erase centuries of systemic racism in this country, but it is a step in the right direction because it does reflect shifting values in this country. And that is a component of making change, right? The people have to decide that that change is possible and have to advocate for it and fight for it. And I think that is a representation of things that are changing and, gives me hope for the future. So yeah, I want my Tubmans, and I want to see Sojourner Truth on the back of the $10 bill. And I want to see, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Marian Anderson on the back of the $5 bill as was promised. So we're going to hold the administration accountable, but I cannot wait to get my hands on one of those $20 bills with Harriet Tubman on it and add it to our exhibition as well.
Awesome. I can't wait to see it in the exhibition.
Yeah.
So the exhibition has been seen by over 60,000 people. And those people include students and teachers and educators and parents and adults of all kinds. What are the next steps to get it to a wider audience?
Well, I think in this, in this COVID period, we have stepped back and we're trying to think about how to make all of our exhibitions bigger and better and even more educational. So we are definitely doing that work on For the Love of Money. Pamela mentioned financial literacy. I'm going to mention financial empowerment. Those are two things that we want to add to this exhibition so that, you're not only learning about the history of the currency and the people on it and the process, the legislative process of how it gets produced, but also, learning how to improve yourself from a financial perspective, both in terms of literacy and empowerment. So those are our actual aspects that we're looking to add to the exhibition. So as it, resumes touring on the other side of the pandemic, we can start to bring that type of education to everybody. There are lots of things that we want to do. Like, I would love to see us do a book about, this exhibition and the currency. I'd love to do a documentary about it, things that will add interest and, kind of expand, the appeal of it. Obviously Harriet Tubman on the 20 and hopefully the other, Black icons on the other bills is going to, I think, drive a lot of interest behind it. But I think that the biggest thing that we want to do that we really haven't been able to do to date is to get some sponsors to support the exhibition and help us take it to more places. That would allow us to take it to additional museums and cultural, sites around the country, would also allow it to, for us to tour it ourselves and, kind of pop it up in different locations. As well as to really build out a more robust experience online. So we are going to be looking for sponsors to help us, just bring it to as many people as possible. That's kind of one thing. I think the second thing is, that we are working on very actively across our exhibitions and collection, but specifically with For the Love of Money, is to create educational curriculum and educational games and materials around it so that, places that we can expand it include schools. So, in addition to, teaching adults about, financial literacy and empowerment, we can also be teaching, students about kind of the whole experience. So that is something that we are actively working on. We have partnered with a lot of really smart people to help us, again, extract the educational value out of everything we do to take to pre-K through 12. Because everything we do is Black history, and everybody should be learning about Black history. So the sponsorship and the educational pieces, I think, are what are really going to help us expand the reach and impact of the exhibition.
That's awesome. Pamela, have you had the opportunity to use the exhibit? I know you're a teacher, so have you had the opportunity to use the exhibit to educate the students that you teach? I think, Laureen, you really touched on like financial literacy and empowerment, and I think those are crucial to teach when children are young. So have you had the opportunity, and if you haven't, do you have any plans to kind of interject that into your curriculum?
Yes, I have had the opportunity to introduce the coins when we initially started collecting them to a number of my preschool classrooms. And what I found most interesting as the children engaged was not only did they see someone, once I showed them a photograph of the person, because it's really kind of hard to tell what that person looks like on a coin, they were able to they saw a representation of themselves, but depending upon what that person represented, whether it was sports, music, or let's say history just in general, children were able to see themselves within that field. So for instance, the Jackie Robinson coin, I was able to talk to my students about sports and different types of sports that they like to engage in, and have the opportunity to, do an outside event around the sport that they like and the sport that was represented on the coin by the person that we were having a discussion about. And so even as far as Marian Anderson, we had an in-depth discussion about music and musical instruments and learning to read sheet music or the musical notes. And so there's a multitude of things that you could do from, preschool, obviously all the way up to 12th grade. And as we move forward and develop our curriculum, it's very exciting for me as a teacher and just for the museum of having this particular artifact to be able to bring forth a curriculum and educate in a different type of way, other than just having children and young people, have a discussion without having hands-on material. And that's critically important because I'm a visual learner. And most children are visual learners. And to be able to touch and feel and to relate by virtue of what that individual does and bringing it home to how it impacts them, or do they have any relationship to that area that person's in, is it's powerful. So moving forward, I can't wait to present that again.
That's awesome. Yes, I'm personally a visual learner, and I find that my nephew literally sponges up anything he sees. If he sees it, he's now engraved it in his brain. So are there any projects you guys are working on now? You guys both alluded to some of the work you're doing, taking a step back. Are there any particular projects you're working on now that are going to focus on continuing educating people on Black culture and history that you're excited that maybe you can tease for us and share with our audience?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we are working on is, again, we're looking at every aspect of our collection and all of our exhibitions, trying to extract all the educational value out of them. But, kind of an overarching kind of umbrella to our educational efforts is an initiative that we call Tell the Truth, Teach the Truth. And what we're advocating for is establishing national standards for teaching Black history. There are no national standards for teaching history in this country, and there are no national standards for Black history. So Every state teaches it differently, if they teach it at all, because it's not mandated in every state. The states that do teach it, you probably don't get Black history till you're in 9th grade, and then you don't get much. You may learn a little bit about slavery, and what's being taught about slavery is just incorrect. I mean, in some textbooks, it's, you know, kind of positioned as, you know, an immigration program or like a work study program. I mean, they really are not teaching the hard truth about the enslavement of African people in this country. And, you know, that has to change. That has to change. I mean, there need to be national standards. You know, Black history is American history. It should be taught pre-K through 12. Should teach all aspects of it, not just that Black people were slaves, but, you know, all the, again, the contributions and sacrifices that we've made to this country. There should be totally new materials. I mean, the textbooks that are there, again, are, you know, a lot of them are politically driven, and a lot of the history is whitewashed and it's incorrect. So totally new materials created by people who are experts in Black history. And there, you know, there should be a standard to how it's taught. You know, it's great to have Black History Month, but again, you know, we've been in this country the entire time. You know, in every aspect of American history, there have been Black people contributing to that history. So it's time for a change. I don't think we're ever going to heal as a nation and as a people until we are dealing with the same facts, you know, and we are looking at, you know, what has happened in a consistent way. And, you know, we are, you know, just dealing with, you know, the hard history and the hard truths of, you know, the enslavement of Black people, white supremacy, white supremacist violence, systemic racism. I mean, it's just time. And, you know, I think if anything, the protests over the summer have shown that young people are ready for it. You know, the adults need to get out of the way. And, you know, we need to, you know, give children the history, you know, education, and particularly Black children, the Black history education they deserve. So that is something that we're very passionate about. You know, we have a petition that we put up on change.org. And, you know, we're just trying to get signatures so that we can, you know, have our, you know, government, you know, create a national standard for teaching Black history in this country. So that is, you know, a big part of what we're doing. And again, we are looking at, you know, how do we, you know, contribute to, you know, better Black history education through developing curriculum and materials. And we're, you know, we're kind of playing in the, you know, the virtual reality, mixed reality space. We're looking at creating VR and mixed reality games built around Black history and artifacts for kids, you know, to give the, you know, something that's kind of out of the box and different and driven by technology. That will engage, you know, kids and really get them excited about learning about new things. So we're putting a lot of energy in these COVID times to doing that.
Anything driven by technology, I feel like you will get their eyes.
Yeah.
It's technology based. My nephew somehow has figured it out, and he's only 8.
Well, you know, the thing that's interesting is, you know, like our animation exhibition, for example, you know, those are animated characters. And, you know, our coin exhibition is driven by, you know, real people. So, you know, things like that we have really found do engage, you know, kids. It's interesting, you know, we are, you know, we're children of the 70s. When we started collecting this stuff, we collected it because we loved it and it was nostalgia for us. So when we developed the exhibitions, we just assumed that the audience would be nostalgic baby boomers, right? We really we didn't understand at the time that the, you know, majority of the audience for museums is school-age kids on field trips, right? And what we learned through that process is that our exhibitions and our collection is very engaging for them. Like, you know, I'll share some feedback that we got from the Schomburg Museum in Harlem, which is the first place that our animation exhibition went to. You know, we're talking to the curator after the show, and she said, you know, it was really interesting. I was kind of watching the kids as they came in, because, you know, we actually went and we contacted every school in the city. So they had like a ton of people. The docents were exhausted, but the curator shared, you know, I saw kids, you know, kind of look at the animation art and they were like, what is that? I've never seen it before, right? And then as you kind of engage them, they're like, wow, those Black characters are really cool. I've never seen those before. And then, they started to understand, wow, Black people actually did that. That's something that I could do. Like I could be an animator. So, the whole process of, kind of this, connecting with Black history in a way that, you see yourself represented and you start to understand that there are possibilities of things that you could do that you never dreamed of is the thing that really kind of got us to step back and say, whoa, we didn't understand that that was the power of kind of what we were doing. But now that we know that, how do we really intentionally create things that, connect with kids and engage kids and inspire them? So I think as we go through the process of trying to understand how to build curriculum and games and things like that, that's what we're intentionally trying to do this time around.
What are the next steps for the Museum of UnCut Funk? I personally think it's a unique and educational platform that shares insights into history of Black figures that many of us, myself included, have not had the opportunity to learn about. And how can people continue to access the museum during the pandemic, but also post-pandemic?
Well, I'll actually take that question and say that, 20 years ago or so, I did not want to open a physical museum and, kind of put my foot down, but I have come around and, Pamela has finally won that argument. All roads to us from this point forward lead to building a physical Museum of UnCut Funk. And, one of the things that we did last year is we formed a nonprofit. And today, before we started this interview, we received our designation letter from the IRS. So we are now officially a 501c3 organization.
Oh, that's amazing news.
Yes, we got it today. We got it today. So we're excited. And we are going to be on the road of, trying to fundraise to build a physical museum. Everything that we do with our exhibitions and our educational efforts, lead to what we hope to accomplish once we have a physical space. So, that is really, kind of the key thing that is going to, probably be, the thing we spend the rest of our lives on, which we hope to accomplish in our lifetimes, but to actually build a physical museum of UnCut Funk. And, the pitch is, imagine Soul Train meets Disneyland, which
You have me, I'm sold.
Yep, the funkiest, space in the universe, and that's what we really want to do. The funkiest experience in the universe. We want to create an experience for people. So when you come to the Museum of UnCut Funk, you're going to feel like you've been transported back to the 70s, and do that through just the whole way that we try to build experience into everything, and through technology as well. And for everybody. So we'll have something for students, which will really be cutting edge in terms of how they, learn and engage with and interact with Black history, as well as adults, because our exhibitions are intergenerational. Parents bring their kids, grandparents bring their grandchildren. It's something that everybody can enjoy, and that's what we're really looking to create.
Yeah, it's going to be very exciting as we move forward, especially now that we have our nonprofit status. And I'm very excited about it, very excited about building upon the collection, adding more things to what we already have, looking for all of the new coins that are coming out. Lorene mentioned that at the Schomburg, the students, were so engaged and, taken aback at the fact that they could actually be animators. There were two Black men that actually designed a couple of coins that we have in our collection. And so once that becomes more established by way of our postings and getting the exhibitions out, young people will have another alternative of something else that they can do besides some of the things that they're doing, which I won't name, and they're not bad, but besides basketball, besides, aspiring to be a rapper, and those things are good if that's what you want to do, but there's so much more to what we can do. And our exhibitions say that to a lot of young people who maybe don't have the opportunity to think out of the box, so it's very exciting for us right now.
Well, I'm very excited, and I think you kind of hit it on the nail. Like, you provide an opportunity to showcase that there's a world beyond what they see every day, that the opportunities are beyond what they see just, in the news or in movies, but that the opportunities are limitless. Well, thank you again so much. I think, what I'm sure people who are watching are wondering, how can they reach out to you if they have an interest in joining you on this journey as you kind of continue to build the Museum of UnCut Funk?
They can reach us through the website. The emails come directly to us. Contact the curator section there. You can also, find us on Twitter at Sister2Funky. We are on Facebook, Museum of UnCut Funk, and we're on Instagram, Museum of UnCut Funk. And that is the two of us. So we are the museum. So if you reach out on any of those platforms, you will get one or both of us, and we will respond.
Awesome.
And the museum website is museumofuncutfunk.com.
Yes.
So thank you both very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel like I have learned a whole ton. I am now going to go educate my 8-year-old nephew.
Yes.
But we really, really appreciate your time and for educating me, for educating the audience, and for the work you do. We know that it takes a lot of time to curate the collection you have curated, but it's definitely very important. And I can't wait to see you kind of rise and build that location and visit, because I'm sure it's going to be phenomenal.
It's going to be awesome. We cannot wait to do it. And, we'll be working hard at it as we do it, everything. And, again, just, hope that we, come out on the other side of this pandemic as we, hope for everybody. And we're able to continue to do the things that we love and that we are passionate about. So.
Thank you so much, Lorene and Pamela, for your time today. It has been so educational. If you want to learn more about the Museum of UnCut Funk, you can visit their website, www.museumofuncutfunk.com.